Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but today I'm going to be showing you my drift build for the Vapid Dominator ASP. Now in this video I'm going to be running you through all of the customization options you need to go ahead and put on this car to be able to drift it, and then afterwards I'm going to give you some additional gameplay with some tips and tricks to go ahead and help you drift this car a little bit easier. Now I would like to just say, if you do go on to enjoy this video or find it helpful, be greatly appreciated if you could go ahead and leave a like and consider subscribing for more. And if you are interested in this sort of content, do consider checking out my drifting playlist in the top right and checking out some of the other content on my channel. But with the shameless plugging out of the way, let's get into the build. Now let's take it into the mod shop. Now I'm going to run you through all of the customization options you need to put on the build, but first things first, I'm going to cover the absolutely mandatory things that you need to put on this car to make it a lot easier to drift. All of the absolute essentials will come first, and then afterwards I'll run you through the customization options that are purely cosmetic in case you want to replicate my build. Now for the brakes options, I would recommend you go ahead and leave your brakes stock, as upgrading your brakes will just mean that your car will lose more momentum when you are adjusting your drifts using your brakes, so there's no real benefit to upgrading them. Now moving on to engine tunes, I'd recommend you go ahead and max it out, so EMS level 4. The better engine you have, the better performance your car will have. You know, better acceleration means those rear wheels are going to spin a lot more and will just help you get a lot less traction and get those longer drawn out drifts that you're looking for. Now for the spoiler option, I would recommend just choosing any of them. Typically adding a spoiler will go ahead and increase traction, but this car already comes with a spoiler for its stock option, so changing between them will not affect the traction in any way and it will still drift perfectly fine. So really here it is personal preference. Moving on to the suspension options, I would recommend using the competition suspension. With the LS tuners vehicles, cars with lower suspension options are going to have slightly more grip and vice versa, but for this car you might think it's counterintuitive to give it more grip, but the car has already got plenty of kick on it. It is already plenty tail happy, so I like to use the competition suspension for a bit of easier control. If you do want it to kick out a little bit more, feel free to raise it a couple of levels. Transmission wise, I use the race transmission, as this will give you the best performance out of the mid-drive speed boost or double clutch, which is great for drifting. It is one of the absolute essentials for those longer chain drifts. Moving on to the turbo, again just like the engine and for the same purpose, I just recommend that you equip it so the car has a bit more power and is a bit more tail happy. Now moving on to tire enhancements, I'd recommend going ahead and equipping the low grip tires, as this will give you a massive traction loss and will just make it a lot easier to go ahead and drift this car. Now we're going to be going into the cosmetic side of the build, so everything from here is just going to be cosmetic options which will not affect the car's ability to drift. This is simply if you'd like to replicate my build. So first things first, for armor I went ahead and upgraded that to the maximum, put that on 100%. For the front bumper I used the primary aggressor bumper, and for the rear bumper I use the primary black lip bumper. Moving on to the engine block, I use the primary ridged V8 engine, and for the engine fittings I use the chrome supercharger, and then for rail covers I use the primary race rail covers. Strut brace is the lightened racing strut brace, and the intercooler is just the standard one. Now for the exhaust I use the double side exit exhaust. The camera angle doesn't let you look at it, but I'll just show you it right there. And then the fenders are just stock on the front and the rear. For the hood, I went with no hood catches, and then I used the primary GT hood. For the interior, I used the semi-stripped interior. I used the stock dials, carbon race door panels, the carbon race seats, and for the steering wheel I used the Apex Basic. Roll cage is just the normal dash dodger cage, the non-padded version. Went with the stock headlights, no neon kit, and the black thick stripe livery. Kind of wanted to keep kind of like a street build vibe with this car. No louvers on this one. Went with the stock mirrors. No mudguards. Now in the classic category for respray color, the primary color is rolled steel, with our secondary just being a classic black. No pearlescent, trim color being black, and an ice white accent color with no crew emblem. The roof options are left stock. And for the side skirts, I'm using the primary performance skirts. Spoiler is the primary ducktail. No sun strip. Slam suspension, max transmission, stock trunk. Turbo tuner. Wheels are the Giga Mesh rims in the track wheels category. Love the look of those BBSs. Went with the color being black, no tire lettering, and I went for the black tire smoke. Finally, for the window tint, I went with dark smoke. But that is the build. So let me know your thoughts on that down below. I'm interested to hear your feedback on it, positive or negative. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on now to the section where I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of this car, basically how it handles, how it holds up drifting, and also some pointers on how to drift this thing. Now the Dominator ASP is by far a very capable drift car and is incredibly underrated. I don't really think many people have realized its potential yet. But with that, I will also say that the car is on the slightly more challenging side for its handling. I would say that you need to be pretty confident in using the mid-drive speed boost and using throttle control in particular, as this is one of those cars that is not going to be very forgiving with you. If you take the corner at a slightly wide angle, or if you go ahead and put a bit too much power down just before you hit the corner, unlike some other vehicles when you're drifting, it's not really going to give you a lot of room to work with. It wants to be drifted in a very particular way, and if you mess up a little bit, the car will spin out. There's no way getting around it. So it will take a little bit of practice. It will just take a little bit of getting used to, but once you have got a feel for it, this is an incredibly fun car to throw around. And yeah, I would highly recommend it. Another thing I would say to get this thing drifting a little bit easier for you is to actually not stance it in the interaction menu. Lowering it in the interaction menu is just going to make the car even less grippy, but when it's already at its highest, its normal suspension level, it is already perfectly capable at drifting, and slamming it any lower is just going to make the car incredibly difficult to drive and gives you a lot less control. So personally, I recommend leaving that suspension level raised. And as well as that, I would say that this car is a bit more well suited for drifting at those kind of like medium to higher speeds. It is pretty decent around like short kind of courses and whatever, parking lots and whatever too. At lower speeds, it really is able to be drifted at a variety of different speeds, but anything that you're going to try that's a bit more ambitious in terms of maybe entry style. So if you're going to try and go for something with a 360 entry or any of that kind of stuff, you might struggle a little bit because of this car's tendency to spin out with you know, if you go out with a bit of a wider angle. So this car can drift perfectly fine. It's very capable. It's a very good drift car for regular style drifting, you know, street drifting, that kind of thing, around tracks, parking lots, whatever. But any of the crazier stuff, you might want to look elsewhere, or you're going to need a lot of practice with this thing, because it is very, very, very challenging to do those higher skill, you know, drifts and all of that. But I think that's pretty much all I need to say in terms of how to handle this thing, how to drive it. So hopefully that does help. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on it down below. Interested to see what you guys think of this car, because honestly I only just discovered this car, like how good it was, a few days ago, and honestly it's blown my mind. So I'm definitely going to need to get a bit more practice with this. You might see some clips of me with it soon. But that is going to be all for today's video. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to all of you for sticking it through. If you did find this helpful, if you did enjoy it, please do leave a like and subscribe. It would help out massively. But that is going to be all. Thank you all very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.